I'm with Ty Campbell, my dude. FishTips digital
So
guy, the last ticket punched in the Bassmaster Classic, winning the team trail.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I want to know, one, how are you feeling? You're the last qualified, right? You're the last guy in the Classic.
Yes, sir.
Dude, because I know you obviously you fished the opens, you fished the college series. You were, oh my gosh, that's right. You were leading the college series. And
Yep.
then so you had like multiple opportunities to qualify. Did you think this would be the way you punched your ticket?
Well, I was second in this event 2 years ago. I've been in that spot before. I've been the first man out of having a shot like 3 or 4 times. So it's been familiar territory to me, but I've never been able to seal the deal on it, dude. I felt like the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders last Saturday. It's a feeling you can't even describe. Like it's amazing. You can't put it into words.
Do you think I mean, like, I look at guys that are super dominant on tour right now, from Bassmaster, Major League Fishing, and there's that kind of, I would call it that kind of maybe herring region, maybe expanded, that is like, those guys are just, I think they're so versatile, they're so good. Do you think that being in that region, Lake Lanier, Hartwell, Kiwi, Clarksville, you think being a guy right there, you think those lakes kind of prepare you for everything across the country?
Yes and no. Fishing wise, I don't think it does, believe it or not. Because herring fishing, and you know this as well as anybody, herring fishing is a very unique and a very specific deal that is pretty much catered to the South. The only thing that I can really relate to herring fishing in the South is really kind of smallmouth fishing up north. The way that smallmouth are kind of nomadic, the way that spotted bass are in the South. But really, herring fishing is its own deal. The one thing that I do think fishing in the South around here has helped me with is the competition.
Oh yeah,
These
it's
people around here on these lakes will absolutely beat your eyeballs in. So you got to take it all in stride and be able to take your licks. And that is the one thing that I think has helped me over the years. It's just being around guys that are just, I mean, absolutely incredible fishermen all the way around, from Lanier to Hartwell to Clarksville, even up there in western North Carolina on Chattooga and some of those smaller lakes. If you don't show up with your A game, you're going to get laughed at. So I think that
yeah.
is one definitely helped me over the years.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do. So here's my one thought too, is as much as just because you think about the Savannah River chain and all the tournaments, like, it's ridiculous how many tournaments are on our region, South Carolina,
Yes.
North Carolina, Georgia. It's
That
ridiculous.
is the other thing that's helped me a lot, is having a lot of reps. I mean, I can
Yeah,
pretty much weekend and I can have a tournament to go fish.
but I will say, I do think you have to be an outside the box thinker on herring lakes.
100%.
Like, you have to, I think the herring fishermen that I know are some of the most creative fishermen, because one, we're so used to fishing for pressured fish. We're so used to fishing for nomadic fish. And I think we have the tendency to, and I'm saying we, because, I was a guide in the region, obviously,
Right.
but I have the tendency to think we have the ability to think outside the box, maybe a little different on some deals, to produce bites. And I mean, I look at guys like, our really good friend Emil Wagner, Paul Marks, a lot of these dudes, man, they are just bulletproof anglers, I feel like.
100%.
I think we struggle with grass fisheries sometimes.
Herring fishing will teach you to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Even keeled. Because you know how a herring tournament can be. It can be 2 o'clock and you ain't got a fish in the box, and it happens in the last hour of the day. You got to stay on your toes and be ready for it to happen when it happens.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That is a truth. So since you were a little boy, I'm sure you've wanted to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's every kid's dream that's ever been involved with bass fishing, right?
Yeah, that's so
So yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. It's hard to even like imagine it in my head that in 3 months I'm going to be walking across that stage with Dave Mercer. It just can't even register in my head, really. I'm just ready for it.
Yeah, it's awesome. You can't be on the lake now? Is there any off limits or
January 1st, I'm fishing a tournament at Clarksville Saturday, and then we are boot scooting boogieing at 13 hours to Lake Ray Roberts. We're going to go get some pre-practice time in.
I don't know much about the lake. I don't think I can tell you anything about the lake anyways. But I do know there's some big ones in there.
Yep, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be just what little research I've done. I think it's going to be a big weight tournament. As long as we're not throwing any weird conditions. I know the classic that they fished there in 21, they had some weird weather, some really high water. Hopefully we don't have to deal with that this time, but I think there's going to be some good fish catches, some good weights, and you know how Texas in March can be. That could be some magic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, all right. I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit because you're obviously a Lake Hartwell guide. You're a digital guide on FishTips.com. First, I want to say, what are your honest thoughts? You've been on the platform for a year now, coming up on a year. What do you think about Fish Tips?
It's amazing, man. I mean,
You can't say that's just brown noser at that point.
I mean, I was on the fence about it. I can't lie. When I first decided to make the leap, I was on the fence about it. But now that I've actually done,
what were some reservations you had?
As a tournament, not necessarily as a guide, but as a tournament fisherman, I had some reservations about giving away some of the knowledge that I had. But I've realized that knowledge to some people is invaluable. Like if people are just coming out of town or they're trying to learn about fishing or learning the region, that knowledge that I might have that may be able to pass on to them, why would I not want to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And
If that could make the difference between somebody catching fish and not catching fish, how selfish is that of me to not be able to pass that information on to them?
Yeah, I think so many guys, because obviously I talk to a lot of pro anglers, a lot of fishing guides, and they're like, man, I don't want to give away tournament stuff, or they're a tournament angler, and they're really, they play their cards close to their chest.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't see it affecting guides or tournament anglers like you at all. I mean, dude, you have been a monster producer on the platform this year on Lake Hartwell, and every freaking weekend I see you in the top 3, if not winning. And I'm like, man, Tybo is doing incredible things, helping educate people, getting compensated. And at the same time, like, it's not affecting your tournament performance at all.
No.
So I think that's
knock on wood, cross the fingers it hasn't, but no, that's not been an issue for me up until this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and and I tell people all the time, like, obviously I think there's no replacing the most important thing, which is time on the water, which is what guides have. So,
and that's something that maybe guys that are utilizing the Fish Tips platform,
they don't have
that. And that could be the bridge that crosses between my time on the water and their time on the water. I can make their time on the water more efficient.
Yeah, of course. And then in the same regard, you do this, you give very quality information, very dialed in fishing reports. And at the same time, like you can look at the weather, you can see a wind change, you can see cloud cover, you can see the slightest little difference in just what the fish behavior is, and how to make those finer adjustments. Because that's just part of being on the water all the time. So you definitely see those things. Well, here's a question. Give me a generic pattern that kind of plays across the board on Hartwell through the wintertime, because I would consider it starting to get in the winter, it's starting to get cold. What's or maybe a couple patterns that are just kind of generic that play in the wintertime?
Okay, so we'll do a two-prong punch here. First and foremost, it's a staple on any herring fishery, but that would be ditch fishing. We're getting into December, January. The temps are starting to cool off. Those spots are going to start piling into the ditches.
Now, when you say ditches, what does that mean?
Okay, so it could be a main lake ditch or it can be a creek ditch. That's anywhere where a creek channel is defined and it is running through the lake. So that can be out on the main lake. It could be 2 points, and there's a creek channel ditch that runs between those 2 main lake points. Or it could be the very back of a creek where a creek is actually dumping into the lake, and it creates a little pocket, and there's a creek channel running through it. That's what a ditch is.
How shallow have you seen ditch fish get?
Typically for me personally, early in the year, it's going to be a shallower deal. So like I pulled up in places in December, first thing in the morning, and they're schooling in the back of a ditch in 5 foot where the creek comes in. They're blowing shad out of the water, schooling. you can catch them on a small little top water or a fluke or something like that. And then as you start getting into some of the more of those serious winter water temps, mid 50s, low 50s, high 40s, they're going to start getting deeper out into, 30, 40, 50 foot out into the timber in those places.
What here's one for you. What's the deepest ditch fish you've ever caught? I've caught some deep ones.
Lake Kiwi, I caught one on the bottom in 110 foot.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say 110s. I think like my deepest too. Mine was Joe Cassie, which is
just one lake on up. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
like absurdly deep though. That was an accident. I didn't mean to do that, so I'm not gonna take claim for it. Crazy. It's not uncommon to catch largemouth out on Clark's Hill and Hartwell in 60 foot. We do that quite often, but it's just hard to wrap your mind around how deep a largemouth can get on some of these places.
Yeah, especially like our bodies of water, I think, because the water's so freaking clear.
100%.
I mean, dude, you and I were in the boat one day and we saw fish come out of 25 foot of water to eat a topwater bait,
straight to the top. 100%.
Yeah. They obviously their visual acuity is incredible. They're apex predators, so their sensories are next level. But all right.
Whether it's 5 foot in the back of a ditch,
or
100 foot in a ditch, the fish are going to go wherever the bait goes.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
all you got to know about it.
100%. All right, so that's pattern 1. Give me pattern 2.
Okay, I'm going to blow your mind here. It's not live scope related.
Let's go. Oh,
cranking.
Yep. Now give me some more. Give me some more cranking.
Okay, so anywhere, rock, clay banks. I really like some steeper rock stuff. It really depends on what the weather's doing. If it's super, super cold and you get a good cold front and it's 20, 30 degrees, that steeper rock, like bluffier type stuff is what I like to target because they'll get on that more vertical stuff. But if you're getting days where it's getting into the 40s, 50s, 60s, just like almost like a herring point where they would spawn at in the spring, you got a good tapering clay point with some pea gravel or some good chunk rock mixed into it. They'll get on that stuff really good too. But the wind is the key with that stuff. You want the wind pounding on it.
It's weird to me. One is two questions. One, why do you think wind is important?
The wind just helps your bite ratio increase. They're a lot more keen on actually committing to the bait and eating that crankbait when the wind's blowing. You got a little bit of more water displacement, and obviously I think you're going to have more bait pushed into those areas where the wind's blowing into it. When it's really slick out there, unless it's super, super duper cold and you're just barely creeping that crankbait on the bottom, it's hard for me to get a lot of bites on it. And you can see it on live scope. You'll have 3 or 4 follow it all the way back to the boat without committing to it when it's dead slick on that crankbait.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you answered both questions because the next reason was, why do you think they're up there? I obviously think there's bait up there too. But dude, sometimes I think those fish are just literally sunning. Like I think
100%. That's what I said about the clay stuff. That's what they're doing when they're up there on that clay and stuff. 100%. That's all they're doing is getting some sun onto their backs.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a lethal technique. Yeah, dude, Chatoog is like a mini Lanier, and those are the deal in the wintertime, man.
Lanier is notorious for having a good crankbait bite this time of year. If you don't like going out there and dangling a minnow and 60 foot in a ditch, just pick up a crankbait and go to the bank and burn it down, and you can get some bites doing that as well.
So all right, let's talk about some baits. What are some baits that you'd say, like, these are A+, the number 1 ditch baits? These are my go-to crankbaits on those 2 patterns. And I have a third pattern, by the way, that I want to throw in there.
Okay, cool.
I'll let you go first.
That might be the third pattern that I didn't want to talk about, but we'll talk about it. We'll let it come out your mouth. Okay, so two-prong approach for the ditch bite. Like Austin said, A-rig. I know a lot of the tournaments that I'm fishing these days, I can't throw an A-rig, but when I'm out there with a guide client, or if I'm just fun fishing or fishing a local deal, you can't beat an A-rig. I like to throw it with, depending on how deep you're fishing, you can put some 1/4 ounce heads on that sucker and get it down there pretty quick and just creep it along the bottom. My second choice would obviously be a Demiki rig, whether I'm casting at fish or I'm dropping it straight below the boat. I like a Zoom Super Fluke Junior. That's just what I have some confidence in.
You've been playing with the winged fluke at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Or should we have not said that?
No, it's okay. It's we'll let it slide. 4-inch wing fluke is absolutely phenomenal, especially when you're fishing for fish that are up higher in the water column, that are actually like actively chasing bait and not glued to the bottom. It seems to me when the fish are glued to the bottom and I'm like having to actually mope it over the top of them, I like that dead stick action of the Super Fluke Junior. But if I'm actually like chasing fish on like an 1/8 ounce head or a 3/16 up high, that wing fluke rocking back and forth seems to be able to get a couple extra bites.
That I just got my hands on them, and okay, so when they first came out, I've you know this, like I know this. The flukes, sometimes you get a pack of flukes and you might get like I think they come in 10 packs or 12 packs. You might get 8 of them that are straight, and then you're like some that have king tails. Now, if you boil those baits, obviously, that's kind of a deal. But
Also got tricks for that too.
say that
You
again.
take like on the wing fluke, Super Fluke Junior, anything. If you get, and that's just they all come from the factory perfectly straight. That's just mismanagement from within shipping, or they
Oh, of
lay them
course.
up on the pegs or stuff like that. If you'll take your baits, whether any size fluke, any kind of fluke, if you'll take and face 5 flukes this way and 5 this way in the pack, and go like crisscross, they'll stay perfectly straight all the time.
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say though is with the winged fluke, I noticed, dude, they're actually made out of a slightly different material.
They are.
The plastic is definitely softer, because I think when I think about a standard fluke, like they're pretty hardy, strong. Like you can usually catch probably 4 or 5 fish on a fluke, unless it's just big fish, or some of those big spotted bass have nasty teeth that just tear it up. But anyways, a lot of the flukes, like I said, are tough, but the winged fluke, I was like, man, it's really soft to the touch.
It is. It's soft, and it's good and soft, but it's not like Sakamata soft where you hook and it's trash.
Yeah, so on the lake I'm at, I caught 3 on it yesterday, and the bait, I mean, like I still have it tied on the rod. Like it's unique. It is. It's kind of in between how hard the fluke is and how soft the Sakamata is. It's right in the middle. And yeah, dude. So all right, so you said A-rig, Demiki rig. You still mess around? I mean, I know Casey Ashley won ditch fishing with an underspin. You still use an underspin?
Personally, I'd rather watch paint dry than throw an underspin, but that's just me. I can't just sit there, and if I'm going to throw something like that, it's going to be an A-rig.
Yeah, absolutely. What about
man, good luck lately when it gets tough? You catch a couple and get them busted up. Take you a big old shaky head and fire it up the middle of that thing and just drag her back nice and slow.
Yeah, so that's kind of unique, because a lot of people, I mean, obviously, we know this. Okay, the ditch fishing, like you said, is early in the morning. There's an early morning ditch bite. Where do those fish go come 9:30?
So there's 2 places they're either going to go. If you're in a lake, if you're fishing like a traditional creek ditch, where I said there's water coming into the back of a creek and it just spills out into a pocket, they're either going to go, if it's sunny, they're either going to go to those docks that are in that ditch, or they're going to go way out into the very end of it. If there's timber, they'll be in that timber, or they're going to go sit on the bottom out in the very middle of it in 40 or 50 foot.
Yep.
Or if there's structure, I know on Hartwell especially, and sometimes in Kiwi at Lanier, some people will put brush piles out in those ditches. They'll be sitting on some kind of structure in that ditch, whether it's a brush pile or a rock or something like that, or out in the timber, or on a good sunny slick day, they'll funnel to those docks that are in that ditch as well.
Yeah, I've always liked that. Depending on water temperature, sometimes it gets too cold. But I've personally always liked going from the ditches and letting that sun get good enough. And then I also think what they'll do is they'll go to the points if there's some wind.
Oh, 100%. If there's a good point, like a little secondary point in that ditch,
oh yeah,
I believe there's going to be some fish up there
with some isolated rock or something. Yeah, that's what I've noticed. But I was going to say, when that water's kind of in the high 40s, low 50s, and that ditch deal's going on, and you do get that high sun, dude, I know we've talked about this before because I'm addicted to glide baits. That's what I'm like, dude, you can catch some Zilla freaks on some docks that just get up there, and man, you'll see a lot of fish too, obviously. So, all right, good deal. So
a lot of people think, contrary to what people think, like you said, the ditch bite is always going to be early. Like you're going to make your magic happen in the first hour or two. But a lot of people give up on it. Man, I've caught some of my biggest fish at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon ditch fishing. You can't give up on it.
Yeah, that's true too, because, and I would say that's just like a tendency of a herring lake, right? Is like, for whatever reason, a school of bait moves, off the bottom or moves through a channel, and there's a school of 5 or 6 big ones laying on the bottom. I know you've seen this. I mean, I literally catch them with red bellies where they're literally
100%.
Their tummies in the clay, and you're not going to see those fish on scope, but you pull into a ditch or something, just check it. You know, maybe you're in 30 or 40 foot of water and there's a ball of bait that's maybe suspended 15 foot off the bottom, and all of a sudden you just see one come up, and then all of a sudden there's this feeding.
There's 30 of them. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom are up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that was your ditch fishing stuff. Let's talk about your crankbaits, because you said just pick up a crankbait and go, but I'm sure there's probably some nuance to that too, right?
There is. There's really 3 or 4 different ones that I throw, and that's really just dependent on watercolor and the lake that I'm at and the water temp. So if it's super, super cold, if we're talking like low 50s or below, I like a frit side, a Berkeley frit side. I'll throw the 7 and the 5.
Ooh, the 7's a dog.
Yeah, the 7 is a dog, an absolute dog. They come with good hooks from the factory. I like the frit side. I like it in brown crawl and ghost red crawl. And then I like the money badger from Berkeley, another good bait. It's kind of a wiggle wart style bait, so it's good rounded bill. It gets down there and just digs on the bottom. The dime 6 is another really good bait. The dime 4 and dime 6 if I'm getting up there into some shallower stuff. And then obviously the rock crawler is really good too. But
yeah,
the dime 6 has really taken the place. The dime 6 and 8 has taken the place of what used to be the rock crawler for me, because they have a lot more color options in my opinion. You've got the brown crawl, the ghost red crawl, and then if you notice a place where you're getting around a lot of thread fins and a lot of herring up on those wind blown places, you can tie that violet herring color, or like a natural herring color on, like some of that translucent shad patterns, and it's an absolute killer, dude.
Yeah, that's a deal for sure. I know this past year, for whatever reason, I was and like I would know, man, freaking sometimes, and once again, being a herring lake guide, we can rely on live scope a lot. But it can be hard if someone's never used live scope before. It can be really hard to try to get them to line up angles and when to reel the bait, or when to pop the bait, or when to reel it up, make another cast at some other fish that look active high up in the water column. And so I just took this one fella. I'm like, look, here's the deal. I said, there's a little bit of wind. We got high 40-degree water. I'm like, we're just going to go up there and crank. And yeah, man, kind of like you said that, oh gosh, do they have one called the dredger?
Yeah, the dredger.
That's the deep one though, right? What's their one that looks like a DT6 or maybe a DT10?
Dime 6.
That's the dime.
So they make the dime and the 4, 6, 10, and 14, I think.
Okay, so I took one that looked like a herring. It was the dime 10, and it was righteous. I mean, it was like, just had the guy literally. I'm like, you could shine it up there, and you could see isolated rock, and you might see a little bit of movement. And I'm like, just reel that booger through him, and he would just burn it, dude. And you just see his rod just freaking stop, and you're like, yeah. It would just head shake. Yep. Big spots, big largemouth. That's a deal. I think that water column's a forgotten water column in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Just kind of that, like, I would really say like 4 foot to 8 foot is just like a lot of people.
I would say even shallower than that on some lakes.
Yeah.
My lake, they'll get up there in the dirt. Like on a good sunny slick day, like I'm talking about on some of those clay places, you can actually put your eyeballs on them just swimming down the brink, just getting some sun. Because you got to think about it. When that sun's out, everything's going to get more active. The brim are going to get up there and get some sun on the back. The crawfish are going to come out of the rocks. That's just where the ecosystem comes alive when the sun's out, especially when it's that cold.
Yeah. All right. My third pattern, I was going to say, it's still kind of, it kind of is like both of those combined, but I was going to say a wind, just chasing the wind, pocket point jerk bait.
That can be a killer.
Yeah. That's something on our lakes up in the mountains. Man, you just can't neglect it. If the wind is hitting things, whether it's a stretch of docks, whether it is, a point, whatever.
Rocky bank, some laydowns, whatever. That the jerkbait just has such good drawing power, especially on herring fisheries.
When you think about these lakes, ditch fishing, point fishing, what would be you're obviously a Lake Hartwell guide, but where would you say, hey, this applies to name all the lakes?
Hartwell, Clarks Hill, Kiwi, Lanier.
What lake is your favorite one to fish?
Clarks Hill for sure.
Clarks Hill's your favorite lake to fish out of all of those?
100%.
Why is that?
Giant largemouth.
There's some big ones there.
Uh-huh.
There are some big ones.
What's the they're not biggest? Smart.
You said they're not smart?
No, they're dumb. They bite.
What's your biggest Clarks Hill largemouth?
7 and some change.
Yeah.
But you catch so many 3.5 to 4 pounders. But from 3.5 to 4 and a pound, there's so many of those in that lake. It's unreal, dude. It's
a unique lake. It's obviously, dude, when I was fishing it in college, so literally 10 years ago. Hold on. Yeah, about 10 years ago. Might actually be longer, might be 11 years ago.
Gosh, you're old.
Yeah, I know. Hardly any spotted bass in the lake, and now there's a ton of spots in that body of water.
Getting big too.
Yeah, I think that place has the potential to be I mean, I would say it's right up there with Lake Hartwell as far as how quality the fishery is.
They just started a new stocking program down there too now. They're starting to stock F1s.
I will say this. So in college, Randy Howell had just won the classic fishing the bridge pattern, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it was just that whole warming front. And I told Zach Hicks, my tournament partner, I'm like, dude, we're going to go freaking crank some of these bridges, do exactly what he did. And I'm not kidding, first bridge we pull up on, I'm cranking, and I catch a dang 9-2 on Clarks Hill. And
that's the cool thing about Clarks Hill, is you can do that because they live around in that place. You can mess around and catch a 9 or a 10 pounder. There's always 4, 5, 10 pounders that get weighed in every year down there.
I know, and I felt like a dummy because I'm like, oh, not like I mean, I didn't know. Literally the first fish. I mean, it was the first 5 minutes, and it was one of the only fish. So listen to this. It was one of the only fish that I had ever caught without a hook in it.
Really?
It had sucked flat side crankbait. When it flared its gills, it sucked it and went through a gill, and the bill was pinned where the gill and his head meet, and the hooks were completely. I caught the fish without a hook in him.
I've done that with a jerk bait where they get it just sideways in their mouth, and the bill and the back of the bait's got their mouth open.
There's not a single hook in them.
Yeah, they're just treble hooks dangling in their mouth.
Oh, that's freaking awesome, man. Golly.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. Hartwell will forever and always be my favorite lake. I mean, I can't discount that, but like, it's always a good change of pace, and I really enjoy Clarks Hill too. But Hartwell will always be my baby.
Yeah, you were born and raised in Hartwell, right?
Yeah, I mean, I live 5 minutes from the lake my whole life.
Man, I know I had a blast. We were there, kind of. Were we there? The herring spawn was still kind of going on. I'm trying to remember.
I think it was like mid to late May when we went.
Yeah, kind of the tail end of the herring deal.
Yeah.
But we still ended up getting on them and had an absolute blast.
Yeah, we smashed on them that day. That was fun.
Yeah, it's good, man. Dude, it's crazy. You know, I obviously just feel so privileged, you know, in kind of the position I am as someone who was a former guide. And I have so many friends like you that are just super successful, super knowledgeable. And, you know, I try to make sure I never take it for granted when I spend time on the phone with you guys or in the boat with you guys. I mean, dude, I've spent time in the boat with some of the best fishermen, multiple classic champions, you know, and I think of someone like you, Emil, you know, Ben Milliken, a lot of guys that are really good friends, man. You guys are some absolute freaking hammers. And
I wouldn't go to jump and include myself into that group, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, I'm telling you, for my just being in the industry, being around you guys, it's, you know, I try to never take it for granted when I'm just like in the boat watching how efficient you guys are, how dialed in you are, and you guys just catch them everywhere. So you may not include yourself in that, but I'm telling you, from qualifying for the classic and just it's funny. It's when it's someone's time to like rise, they will rise. And you've been like, I don't even think necessarily you were too young or anything, but it's just like you've been knocking on the door for a while, and bro, you knock enough times, a door's gonna open. That's how it goes, you know.
It finally opened.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is just, I mean, we saw it last year, you know, just as a from FishTips, we're like, hey, we want to invest in guys that we know, one, are quality people, two, that they, you know, they have a lot of energy, they're trustworthy, everything. And it's like, dude, I mean, you fit the mold of a quality guide, an awesome human. I mean, the same guy you are on the water is the same guy you are off the water, which is special. So yeah, man, we appreciate you.
I'm glad to be on the team, Austin. It's been a real privilege.
Yeah. I'm excited about the future, bro. I think you've got some monster things ahead of you. That's all I'm gonna say.
I hope so, man.
So, anyways, but well, dude, I appreciate your time today, and you know, I want people to book you. They can obviously reach you through fishtips.com. You can also reach out to Tyler Campbell Fishing on Instagram. Do you have TikTok? Do you TikTok?
I did, and somehow or another, I got banned. So I'm about to have to fire up the TikTok again. I don't know what happened. If I liked the wrong video or something.
No, freaking whatever. It's all Chinese propaganda.
That's right. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, my website, tylercampbellfishing.com. You can reach me there.
Awesome. You're gonna keep on fish tipping for a while, aren't you?
I sure am. Absolutely.
Cool, man. Well, dude, thanks for your time today, and we'll make it happen. All right.
Thanks, Near. I appreciate it, dude.